I'm Steve Groff from Cedar Meadow Farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I'm the third generation on this farm, and the crops we grow are mainly vegetables: tomatoes, sweet corn, pumpkins, and winter squash. We also have a few other crops like corn, soybeans, alfalfa, hay. But the primary focus on this farm is the vegetables. I grow my crops using a permanent cover cropping system, which is no tillage, cover crops, and crop rotation. And in that way I've been able to save the soil from eroding away and reduce my pesticides, and the water's cleaner. And it's just been a way that I can grow my crops, especially the vegetables, in a way that's minimal impact to the environment. I had heard Otho Wells give a presentation about high tunnels, and it was something that I thought, well, that might be a way that I can get my tomatoes earlier. So I erected a 15 by 96 foot high tunnel and grew tomatoes in there for 7 years, and I really got to experience the benefits that high tunnels have to offer. The attractive thing in going with the Haygrove high tunnel was, on the cost per square foot basis, it was a lot lower compared to the traditional smaller high tunnels. And being able to have a larger structure worked well into my plan, because I wanted to have at least an acre of tomatoes in a high tunnel. I have 6 bays of tomatoes that are 300 feet long and 24 feet wide, and then I just recently put up one more bay for raspberries that I'm going to see how they do in a high tunnel. Location is important when deciding where to put up a multi-bay high tunnel. One of the biggest considerations is any wind protection that you can offer is an advantage, because wind is probably the most challenging aspect to consider. So I located my tunnel, on the one side is a woods, and the other side is somewhat protected by a few trees. And then on the west side it's pretty well open, so we really had to put some extra anchors and supports there to protect against wind damage. We market our tomatoes to some local stores and restaurants, and also more significantly stores in the Philadelphia region. And because we're able to start a little bit earlier, and I think most importantly the quality that we're able to get out here, is where the Haygrove high tunnel tomatoes give me a marketing advantage, that you can really see the difference in how the tomatoes look, and it's a great customer appeal. The multi-bay structure of the Haygrove high tunnel is not designed for snow load, so the plastic is taken off during the winter. That also limits you to real early production in the spring if you're in an area where you might have a late snow. We plant the tomatoes about anytime after the middle of April that the long-term forecast doesn't predict any cold weather. The tunnel will give a certain degree of frost protection, but I don't like to take any chances that early in the season. The first 6 weeks, 2 months of planting, you actually almost have to babysit the tunnel. Depending on the weather and so forth, you really gotta know what's going on. I look at the hourly forecasts every morning on the internet to determine wind direction and even when the sun is expecting to come out, so I can plan how to vent the tunnel for that day. And we close it up every evening. And then as the season progresses, usually about by the middle of June, when the tomatoes are fruiting up and the nighttime temperatures don't drop much below 60 degrees, we put the sides up and roll them up in a more permanent fashion, and they just stay open then all summer. I get bees in early on as soon as I see the first flower clusters. Because the tunnel is pretty much closed up at that point, there is not much wind inside to pollinate the flowers, to shake the flowers. So I use bumblebees that aid in the pollination, and I feel it's nothing else, it's an insurance to try to get better pollination and more of it. We've experienced good yields and good quality in the high tunnels, and that's one of the attractive reasons to grow tomatoes in the high tunnels. And it's just kind of a rule of thumb that you can probably expect maybe 20% higher yield year in and year out. But I think noticeably as the quality is better, it's a little hard, since I don't keep exact numbers, to determine the exact difference in quality, but we can see it every time when we're bringing tomatoes in from the high tunnel versus the field into the grading area, because you can just see the difference visually all the time.